This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by SuperTech U. Did you know 85% of financial success comes from soft skills abilities and only 15% from our technical abilities? SuperTech U was created by longtime restoration pros Eric Sprague and Larry Wilberton. Their daily 3 to 5 minute videos train your entire company on the soft skills they need to make your business thrive. Plus, your entire team earns IICRC CEC credits, all for about the cost of 1 tank of gas. To sign up, head to supertechu.com/CRMag to get your discount for being a loyal listener to the Restoration Today podcast. That's supertechu.com/CRMag to sign up. Hello there. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Howard Shore. He is the CEO of Activate Group. He has been in the industry for a while, works in some other industries as well, but he knows a lot about restoration, a lot about scaling businesses, a lot about what it takes to run a healthy business and be a serial entrepreneur, because he is one himself. And a lot of restorers are who own companies as well. So Howard, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm just going to toss it over to you first and have you kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit of your background.
Thank you, Michelle. So for those of you who have not met me before, I've been an entrepreneur. My first business I owned when I was 18. I sold it when I was 21. And then I started figuring things out. So I've actually made it my career these days because I've founded 9 companies. I've owned 9 companies. I'm trying to help entrepreneurs. My mission is to help enable you to unlock potential that's right in front of you, and then to not do it the hard way like I did. And part of that hard way was, if you look at my first 15 years, the only reason I think I was successful is I worked 3 times harder than everybody else. That is a fool's bet. And then I started taking on the mantra, how do I work half? And so a lot of the people we work with now, we almost work the owner out of a job, and that's what they want. That's what they choose. And then we build a company that's sellable. So, we've had a number of clients sell recently for 8 multiples in this industry. And it's because of what we helped those owners build. Those companies were going to endure long after them, and they had momentum going into the sale. So we provide that ability to do that. And I just love helping people grow.
So I know that you've been in other industries and you've been in corporate America and held different roles over the years. So how much of your business is in restoration, and how did you get into this niche?
So a big thank you to Dan Casera. We wound up in this niche. I was a speaker at an event, and then he hired me because of what he heard. He knew he needed it. And then I was his coach until they sold off part of DKI. And then, when he was done, I was done there. During that time, I was also a speaker at Insights a number of times. And I've also been a speaker at RIA. And so over time, I've just gotten known in the industry, and people have looked at the exits of some of our even our recent clients are pretty well known. And because of that, most of our business comes from referral. From a scope perspective, and why I think we add a very different value than most coaches and consultants that play in the space is that breadth of experience. So every one of our team members has been an entrepreneur, has owned multiple businesses, has been in the seat, has grown from startup to I've done everything up to 20 billion in revenue. And so taking that knowledge, our firm has worked with over 100 industries since 2004. And that breadth of seeing the different ways entrepreneurs go about and work around the hard stuff is a big value that we bring to people.
What are some of the big blind spots you're finding that restoration owners and leaders have in their businesses that keep them from reaching the next level?
So, there's a couple, and we talked about one earlier. Entrepreneurs get in their own way. So many entrepreneurs talk big, but they think small.
Okay.
So they're so worried about, let's say you've only got 10 employees. Man, I can't figure out how to be a company that manages 10 employees. The great entrepreneurs are already thinking, how do I get to, I'll throw out a number, 50 million, 100 million, and they start building it from day one. And so the people that stay stuck, they're really stuck because of themselves. And you have to figure out what are the mindsets, which probably were learned because of your earlier stages of business, but are now no longer serving you, and it's actually holding you back from growing. So I would say the number one thing is the owner, the founder, the CEO is actually a lid on the business, and they have to lift the lid. The second one is, and it's a common mistake, that what made you successful to, let's say, your 5 million, 20 employees is not what's going to make you successful for the next stage, going from 20 employees to 100. You have to lead differently. You have to build a different company. You have to take risks in a different way. And so you've got to really realize what it takes to do that. And then the other thing that I'll say that will stall a lot of entrepreneurs is, once you've gotten through hell and you're making decent money, you stop, you actually unconsciously stop playing to win. And you take the foot off the gas. And what I mean by that is, there were risks that you took when you were starting out that all of a sudden you're like, man, no, I've got this pot of gold right here. I don't want to risk this pot of gold. And it's that not taking calculated risk that will actually slow down their growth rate.
Okay, so talking about, we're going to talk about some other HR related stuff too, I know, but I'm curious about burnout. Like, this industry breeds burnout, and you're talking about you can't ever, like, don't let your foot off of the gas, keep going, keep going. So how have you also coached your clients who are building these big restoration companies? And this industry does breed burnout a little bit differently, I think, than other industries do, 24/7 business. How do you help them to not get burned out, or help them help their leadership not get burned out?
So one of the things, and I'll never forget, when Russ Palmer and I met a number of years ago before he hired us, one of the things that I said to him that really resonated with him is that in well-run companies, the leaders are the least busy people in the company. And now, if you talk to most of the restoration folks that you know, the people at the top are the ones working the hardest, and they're feeling the most burned out. Now, let's not lie. When you're dealing with emergency services all the time, you're probably going to have to go through a lot of frontline workers.
Yep.
This is not the lifestyle most people chose. Take Phoenix, where Russ is. How many people in the middle of the summer want to get in a hazmat suit and climb into an attic, right? And that's going to be your career for life. I just don't. I don't think that's possible. So what these people need to be thinking about is, how do I build a platform and system where I know I'm going to have to keep replacing that frontier and build a real business? And what I mean by real business is, you, owner, are not wearing all the hats. You're not the cook, the bottle washer, the waiter and waitress, and the head chef, right? And the restaurateur.
Yeah.
So the problem I find, and why most people burn out, is they don't figure out how to get through hell fast. And I'm going to call it hell fast enough. I'm never going to do another startup. I'm done with startups. That stage from 0 to 10, and some people love that rush, is hell. It requires you to wear all the hats, and it's exhausting. But if you get out of the other side, look at some of the bigger ones like Custom and some of the other folks. That CEO is not doing any restoration.
No.
He's building a business.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I would challenge the rest of you to do, if you're not in building business mode, then somebody needs to teach you how to get to that stage, or you're going to stay stuck perennially in the stage and stay on this treadmill, and you're going to be exhausted.
Okay. All right. So you kind of hinted to this concept of human capital management that we're going to talk about. And you just wrote an article for CNR called The One Thing. And it has gotten some good traction and good shares already on social, I've seen, since it's been up for the last week or so. And so talk a little bit about what you mean by the one thing. What is the one thing that you're referring to?
Yeah. So, and I stole this from Jim Collins, and it was like a duh moment when I learned this from him. But in one of his famous books, he wrote in there that the organizations that have the most right people in seats win. Mm-hmm. And you're like, duh, but it's so hard to get there. But that's the secret, right? And so it made me realize that this is where, and we just started with this, is we needed a human capital management system, not a human resource system. So for me, resources are things we use and then we throw away. Assets, so that's where human capital management comes in. Assets is something we want to find the very best assets. We want to grow them. We want to keep them, and we want to get a return on our asset. And so it's a whole cycle, not just acquiring talent. And I think where most restoration companies get in trouble is, all right, so once they say yes and we say yes, how do we get them from 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds, like the Tesla, right?
Yep.
And the answer has been, well, we've never figured that out. It takes 6 to 9 months before they're productive, if they even stay, and they get on this treadmill. So to me, a superpower are the soft systems, not the hard systems. The hard systems, strategy, execution, and not people, cash. We're worried about that, but we're having problems in those three systems because our soft systems, the cultural system, team cohesive system, and human capital management system are letting us down, and they form the foundation and surround the ecosystem that drives the hard systems. So my challenge to everybody listening to this is, listen, it is not hard, which is why most companies suck in the human capital management area. And I'm being nice to a lot of you. All right. And we know it because you can't keep employees. Only a fraction of your employees are actually as productive as they could be. And so for me, there's certain measures that I kind of look at to know whether a human capital management system is working. Is how great are we at turning people that aren't from our industry or have limited experience into looking like experienced people quickly? And if you haven't, and you figure that out, and you can figure that out, you will have a competitive advantage over everybody else. And when you get very good at that, your recruiting gets easier because as people go through your system and you made them better human beings, better workers, better everything, you get a reputation for that, and other people want more of that. Yep. So just getting really good at developing people becomes a superpower in some companies.
Okay, so you kind of referenced it a little bit, talking about bringing people in from other industries and getting them trained so they look like they're in the industry. So how can restoration companies attract people maybe from other industries without having to necessarily pay them more? I know that the pay scales are kind of all over the place, and people will play war with their competitors and add a dollar here, a dollar there. And in the end, that's not what's making people stay or come or go or whatever. So what do you have to say about that?
Man, you hit two things, and all of a sudden I'm like excited, right? I have so much I want to talk about. But and listen, if I were to tell everybody it's easier to acquire people right now, they should stop listening. Just hit stop, right? So I'm not going to tell you it's easy, but for some companies it's much easier. Now, first of all, you guys got to get off of this. What do you pay people hourly? Let's take a mitigation person. Whether I pay them $15 an hour, $20 an hour, if I do all my whole pricing right and everything else correctly, I will get a 7 times return on what I pay them. And folks, figure this out. If you had somebody working full time and they're productive all week long, working on jobs, how much revenue would that person generate? It's going to be at least in gross margin 7 times what you're paying them. So do I really give a rat's ass about $1 an hour? No, what I want to do is figure out how to get to that 7 times. So I'm going to challenge assumptions, and we've done all kinds of studies. If you compare Costco and Sam's Club, for example, and actually Walmart, all right, they actually pay 60% more per hour on average to their workers, and their profit per square foot, their revenue per any metric that you use is double and triple that of Walmart, but they pay 60% more. So my challenge to you is how do you get the right people and then ramp them up so you're getting those types of returns on investment? All right, so that's a big thing. Now, the other part that you asked me, so how do you find them? So I find people are not using all the tools that they have. Now, first of all, and we got to be respectful. Some people, they only have 5 employees and they're lucky if they're at 10 by the end of this year. It's a different challenge for that person. But if you think about turnover and you think about what you truly, so we know companies that lost millions of dollars last year because they didn't hire fast enough.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars in profit last year because they didn't hire fast enough. Yep. So in their cases, and because they didn't have full-time recruiters on staff, they did not get there. Now they have full-time recruiters and staff. They no longer have the magnitude of the problem they did before. So that recruiter paid for themselves. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is no disrespect. Third-party recruiters, they're helpful. I use them. I have ownership in 3 businesses right now. We do use recruiters. The majority of what we get, though, are from internal referrals from our employees because they love working there. Yeah. And because of the experience that we've created for them. And then the second part is our internal recruiter, who is, so there is placing ads, but I'm going to tell you, let's go back to playing to win. We have clients that are adding 50 employees a month. All right, think about this right now. They can recruit, add, and start onboarding 50 employees a month. And some of you are saying you can't hire one. The problem is you're not doing all that it takes to do it. You're trying to do it part-time while you do your day job. You're not, you don't even love recruiting and trying to pull candidates, going through LinkedIn, finding people, pinging them, harassing them, being creative, being aggressive. And actually, by the way, recruiters are not HR people, not your traditional sense. Recruiters are salespeople. They are hunters, all right? So do you have a hunter on staff right now, full-time, looking to fill those positions? Because you would grow faster. Every time you turn down a job, you're probably losing 2 because now you've let somebody down and you're not their first choice possibly in the future because you weren't there when they needed you. So the faster you can recruit, you're going to get more work to fill more people. And most of you don't realize how many people you hire in a year. I remember one time we had a client and I asked him, so, and this was our first meeting, how many people did you hire in the last year? And the COO was like 3, and everybody in the room started laughing. And then we put up on the wall and they had hired 20 people. It was a net 3 that they added.
Oh.
Yeah, ouch, right? Painful, and it's in this industry, by the way. So you don't realize how much work there is there and the weight and goal of the recruiter. So now, let's say you've got that recruiter. In every industry, there's very creative ways to figure out. So in real estate, we do a lot in the real estate industry, and we figured out the salespeople for real estate. We did a great job, and this was pre-COVID. Now there's not many left, harvesting the salespeople in the dealerships. They made a lot more money for our clients. Yeah. And they were much happy to move over. And because of the training they got in the car industry, it really set them up well for what our clients needed them to do. In your industry and in every industry, first of all, I think people's scopes are too narrow. So it's not that I want to find unicorns, but how many unicorns are there? Right? And it's not that I want to find somebody that has all my requirements, but many times the requirements we set aren't necessary. So if you have enough knowledge and you're a larger restoration company right now, you could take somebody that has all the raw guts. They're humble, they're hungry, they're smart. They like working with their hands, all right? They're not an office person, and you can actually teach them to do mid. And that's a different recruit, right? Then, man, they have to already have been from an industry. Like there's other jobs that are harder, like a program manager. Well, maybe I want to get somebody that's in construction, but in other types of construction and looking to make more of a difference with what the work that they do. And maybe this is more attractive to them than where they're at. So I'm not going to look just in restoration for good PMs or good estimators. Will they possibly and probably have to spend a bunch of time, in training to make sure they get it? But if they have all the right capabilities, they have the aptitude, they have the behaviors, and they're humble, hungry, and smart, we will be able to get them into the positions and many times get more traction with them because they don't have to unlearn bad habits. All right. They're not already burned out because they've been in the industry for a long time. So they have a much longer runway when they're fresh. But I get it. You're all stuck right now. And you're like, we need experienced people because we're so backlogged. But you see, you're so busy waiting for that experienced person that the 3 or 6 months that it took you to find somebody, you could have already trained somebody.
I was a recruiter in this industry for about 4 years until I bought CNR last year. And amen. That's all I can say to that, I guess. I feel like that's what I kept saying is like, yeah, you can require Xactimate experience, but we're going to be looking way longer. Whereas if you found somebody with the right knowledge, you could train them up, send them to Xactimate course, and they're going to be trained up and working well for you, and maybe not bring bad habits with them that they learned before.
What's also crazy is, so we'll have clients and they might have 4 or 5 estimators. You have those 4 or 5 estimators do the same estimate. I get 5 different answers
Yep.
from experienced, seasoned people.
Yep.
So I think you have this illusion that when you hire these people, they're going to do much better. And actually, one of the leaks we find in the business bucket, referring back to my business, your business is a leaky bucket, and you guys know that I've talked on stage about this, was your gross margins suck, and it's because you're not getting everything into the estimate that you deserve. You're not fighting for it, and you're leaving 4, 5 points sometimes from the bottom line, and it's in that seat with your very seasoned estimator.
Yep. Yes. Okay. All right. So, all right, with the human capital management piece, I know, so we've talked about attracting people, and then once they're in the business, you have to retain them. And I know a lot of that it goes back to company culture, which has kind of become more buzzy than anything. And people, I don't think, understand what it takes necessarily to build a culture that is healthy and what it takes to actually retain employees. So what are you finding that it takes to help someone stay once they're there?
So it's all about the environment, right? So every time I have the CEO come to me and they're frustrated with somebody, or a department manager and they're frustrated with their people, my first question to them is, how are you causing this? And you get that shocked look, like, me, I do everything for these people. And meanwhile, when you talk to their people, they hate their boss.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second. So to me, it's about the environment that you create. And that's when people refer to culture. Yes, core values define stuff for you, purpose defines stuff for you, all these little buzzwords define. But really what we're doing is we're creating, and I'm going to go back to that word, ecosystem, where people can thrive, do their best work, make mistakes, learn together, grow together, and you have to define what that environment is. We've got some environments where it's all about the numbers, and they drill everybody, and they find soldiers that fit that environment that will do exactly what they need done, and do that. And there's other ones that are more of you've got to define that environment that actually creates, and I want to say, a balanced environment. So one of the things I learned, and this gets back to when you look at your metrics and think about your business, is you have to have a balanced set of metrics. So on the one side, we've got performance indicators, which are people, process, and growth, right? Not people, they're process and growth type numbers. So they're getting margin out of your jobs, they're estimating, they're that, and we have measures to decide whether we're doing a good job there. But you see, then you also have human measures, like, do I love working here? And basically on the human measures, what we want to do is keep and grow our right relationships, right? Internal and external. And so the problem is if we're totally relationship oriented, and we can call that the family environment, then usually our process numbers go to hell. And if we're all process oriented, then our people numbers go to hell, and your turnover goes up, and your reputation goes down, and so forth. So you need a balance. Yeah. And so what you need to do when you create your ecosystem is, it's kind of like this, employee. I'm going to pay you X, and I'm going to create this environment. For that, I need Y from you. And we both need to keep our contract. And then you need an operating system in your company that holds both sides to their contract, employer and employee. It's not one or the other. And everybody's not there to kiss everyone's butt and serve people. They want to be part of a cause.
Yes.
And so you've got to pay right. You've got to create benefits, that kind of stuff, training and development. That's your contract as the owner. And for that, you've got to hold them to, listen, this is what I need from you. And when you're not, a good human capital management system makes very visible when there's a gap in the contract. And I'll give you an example in restoration. So I had a client come to me. They're brand new. We just started working with them, and it's got to be one of the most dysfunctional companies we've worked with. And believe me, we've had a number of them. And we love that challenge. We can definitely get through that challenge.
Yep.
And so they've had high turnover and have never had enough PMs, have never had enough people. They're turning away work constantly. I'm talking millions of dollars of work because they can't get through this. So now we're making traction, and the frontline estimators, project managers are all exhausted because we need double what we have today. So they're exhausted. And then what does the CEO do? The CEO is like, well, we're not paying bonuses to anybody right now because we're not hitting all of our measures. These people are not only crushing it, they're dedicating extra time to them. And there was a contract between them and that employee, those employees, that listen, if you deliver X, we pay you Y bonuses. They're delivering their part. And now you go to them and say, listen, we don't want to honor our part. Even though you've exceeded what we asked of you, we're not going to honor our part right now. What do you think is going to happen if they don't fix that?
Not good things.
Yeah, so I got to be honest with you, we put a kibosh on that immediately, went and apologized to those frontline workers and promised them, and we're very close to adding and almost doubling the size of that team. So we're also showing them, because they're exhausted, that there's a light. And this is what we're doing. So that's another thing you need to do as employers. Your employees can't see the light. So I'm going to go outside of the industry right now. We have a client, they're growing more than 100% a year. They're in the fitness industry. They're opening these 50,000 square foot big box gyms monthly.
Okay.
So they're adding, and they have to add about 40 employees. They're actually crushing their numbers. The way in which they've been talking to their employees actually caused the employees to feel like that they may be going out of business.
That's weird.
Yeah. And
Could possibly be okay.
Because they're always challenging them to excellence. So they're always pointing out what can get better, but they're never sharing the whole picture with everybody.
Yep.
So as employees, they get these little nuggets, they hear the complaints and the other stuff, and then they make up their own stories. So us as leaders, if you really want to get this right, is you have to control the narrative. And I'm not talking about a BS narrative, because everybody figures it out when you're BSing.
Yep.
But you just have to share with them the whole story. So now, because this client is doing great, and then the dialogue becomes, hey, does everybody understand the difference between being good and being great? So when we're pushing you, when we're raising these things up, we're showing everybody the path to greatness. It doesn't mean we're not good. It just means, and this is their culture, that we play to win. And anything other than winning the championship is mediocrity for us. And so that's a cultural environment where mediocrity is not acceptable. And you have to start selling people from the day they come in that, listen, if you're and this is where humble, hungry, smart come in. If you're somebody that good is good enough, we're not the environment. And you need to screen them out in the beginning, because you're going to get stuck down the road if their environment is going to be playing for championships.
Yes. And then you lose your good people if you don't hold the bad people accountable and get out the weak. Anyway, lots of issues there, right? Okay, so before we wrap it up, offline, we talked a little bit about M&A and consolidation and selling and valuation and kind of all that. And because you've been in so many different industries and bought and sold companies, I'm curious within the restoration space, where you see this M&A trend going for restoration specifically. Is it going to continue? How much do you think that the industry is going to consolidate? Are independents still going to be a thing? That's a big question.
So this like many industries, we're ripe for consolidation. And there will be some fallout because of consolidation, but here's the thing: restoration is so you got to look at the macro. And many of you don't know, in my background, I rolled up an industry for. I was head of strategy of a $5 billion company, and they had a division that stalled, and we actually accelerated its growth from 400 million to 600 million in 2.5 years. Within 3 years, we sold it for a huge multiple, a multiple that has not been seen yet again, in that vertical. So first of all, to everybody, I don't see this going away, and the reason is: does anybody think events are going to slow down or stop? Right? No, they're happening more and more, and everything Whether you're a fan of global warming or not, I don't know what the excuse is, but we're getting a lot more events. More events are very good for this business. This business, and where a lot of the small entrepreneurs got stuck, is they didn't understand cash flow. These bigger consolidators have plenty of cash so they can bridge the receivables, because this industry can print money. If you're not making at least 12% in your business, get help. All right, you should be doing at least a 12% net, and to me, 10% net profit is breaking even.
Okay.
So this business, you can run a 12 to 18%, and it depends on your mix, pretty easily. That's a nice business model. One that you know is going to grow, is not going to go away, and it's going to produce value, right?
Yeah.
So these guys are consolidators of value. And so will the 8 and 10 multiples that I hear right now going, will the small guys continue to get that? That's a question. I think if you build a high quality, highly attractive organization and you build it to sell, you'll always be able to get higher multiples than everybody else. Most people, and I'll say right now, a lot of you are getting multiples you don't deserve, and good for you, right? I think those days will wane over time, because eventually a lot of the starter uppers in consolidation will learn their mistakes in acquiring those companies and paying what they did, and they're going to look for higher quality companies. So let me describe to you what that looks like. That company is not highly dependent on one or two people in their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That company, if the CEO left for 6 months, could run itself.
Mm-hmm.
That company has repeatable processes and systems that, as you bring on more and more new people, it just works. All right. That business is showing consistent growth rate in base volume. So those of you who get that $3 million job because there was a tornado in the market, and then that doesn't come back next year, that doesn't count in your valuation. What counts is your ability to show a consistent growth in your base business. And so if you grow every year, your top line and your bottom line, maybe faster, 20% a year consistently for 3 years, your valuation is going to be much different than if you did this. So there are things you can do where you build it up, where you just become more and more attractive. And what business you decide to build the business around is also going to make you more attractive as well.
Okay. Perfect. Well, Howard, thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up? We've talked about a lot of different topics.
A lot of you have read my books, but if you haven't, I'm certain you got a few nuggets today, things you can go and apply immediately, and it turns into money. And the first book that I was known for on stage is Your Business is a Leaky Bucket. That's a good starter book for most people. All of you have businesses that are leaking money right before your eyes. And the problem is your financial statements don't tell you that you're leaking. And the reason is there's no financial line item for I hired a dumbass. There's no financial assignment line item that I didn't hire enough people. So you never see the money that's lost because of bad leadership. That identifies the 15 things that leaders need to be thinking about, and then money shows up. My second book, The Leader Launchpad, is now you're ready. You're ready to scale. What does it look like to scale? And that book tells you real life stories. There's restoration stories in there. And you can actually have a vivid picture right now if you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would recommend people start with the books, right? And then if you just want somebody to pick a brain for a few minutes, no one ever gets on a call with me doesn't get an idea. No one.
Sure.
I'm happy to take calls. Go to our website at activategroupinc.com. That way, if I'm not available, one of our coaches can jump on a call and just get you jump started. We'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I look forward to seeing you at some future events. Not sure when, but thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.